Welcome to the May 11th Complete Streets Commission meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with the Complete Streets Commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. I would like to introduce Complete Streets Commission members and staff present. I'm Chair Sally Cole. Commissioners present include Brian Ottman, Katie Baruzzi, Jackie Sebrian, Christopher Coleman. Welcome, Christopher. Lizbeth King. Commissioners absent include J.K. Jensen. That's it. And the staff present include Kevin Chen and Patrick Palmer. Patrick, would you please provide instructions to the Complete Streets Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Yes, and thank you, Chair Cole and members of the Complete Streets Commission. Welcome everyone to the April 13th, that's not right, to the May 11th Complete Streets Commission meeting. And thank you for attending. At this time, we will ask that the members of the commission please remain on screen for the duration of the meeting. You will control your own webcams and microphones. Staff will engage webcams and microphones to make presentations and respond to the members of the commission. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raised hand feature. I will then have the ability to open your microphone and you can provide your public comment to the Complete Streets Commission. Also, for members of the public who are calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you can press *9 to raise your virtual hand. That concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the chair.
Okay. Under reports and announcements, staff and commission members may communicate general information of interest regarding matters within the jurisdiction of the commission. No commission discussion or action can occur on any of the presented items. So let's start with Kevin. Kevin, do you have any reports and announcements?
I do, thank you, Madam Chair. So echoing a good evening to the commissioners, members of the public, and also our newly appointed commissioner, Christopher Coleman. So welcome. So a couple of announcements and updates I'd like to update the commission on. First and foremost, the City Council elected to move forward the Ravenswood pedestrian and bicycle pilot project. So as many of you might have recalled, this is a project that came to the commission with the idea and a proposal to pilot a bike lane and potentially widening the median island on Ravenswood between Alma and Noel. So we went to the City Council, got some really good feedbacks from them, and ultimately they decided that we want to move forward with the project. So with that in mind, the project is currently in the design phase with the anticipation timeline of construction sometime in the summertime. So hopefully after that, we'll go ahead and get started with the pilot. And of course, recognizing that one of the feedback that we got from the commission is we want to make sure the length of the pilot is long enough to capture the student bodies that are using that pilot, that part of the corridor. So we'll make sure to keep an eye out for that as well. Secondly, oh, yes, Chair.
Quick question. When do you suppose it might begin after the construction, the pilot?
After construction, it will be fairly immediate. We'll be putting in striping, and usually, since it's a temporary pilot project, what we'll be doing is we'll be using striping and some flexible posts to mimic what would be an island out there. So fairly soon after the construction of the street resurfacing project itself.
Okay, well, congrats on getting that through.
Thank you. The second item is that the City Council also awarded the Sharon Height construction project, sidewalk construction project. So some of you might know this is on the, let's consider the north side of Sharon, next to La Entrada. This is from Outshoot to Alameda de las Pogas. So the City Council awarded that contract, again, anticipating construction to start sometime in the summertime. Finally, also wanted to update you that the City Council approved the concept plan for the Willow Oaks Park design. So as many of you might have noticed from the email that I sent to you all, this is mainly an improvement to the back to the playground itself, both in the Burgess and Willow Oaks. But as part of the Willow Oaks component, we are going to look for opportunities to put in a pathway that runs through the international school. It is a missing gap between the intersection of Elm and Pope to the park itself. It's been sort of years in the making, and finally we're taking this opportunity to go ahead and hopefully implement that. So definitely, if you're interested in that project, you want to stay tuned to the progress of that project as well. So with that, I will conclude my reports and announcements. Thank you.
Quick question, I guess for Chris Coleman's sake and maybe my own. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what exactly is occurring on Sharon between Altshul and Alameda? And you said on the north side, what exactly is being put in, or what was the construction that was approved?
It's the sidewalk project.
Sidewalk.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a sidewalk project. It's currently, if you're out there, if you're driven out there, there's gaps of asphalt that people can walk on, but there's also landscaping from residents that are protruding out. So the project is to put in a standard sidewalk on that side of Sharon, part of a Safe Route to School program project.
Okay, excellent. Does anyone have any other reports and announcements? I had one thing to say. No? Okay.
I have one thing to say.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, Katie, please go right ahead.
I just wanted to mention briefly that there was a big study session last night on a project at SRI. And there were a lot of concerns expressed by nearby residents, especially from the Burgess Classics area, but also from Pine Street, about the impact of adding multifamily housing, which, editorializing for a minute, we desperately need to this streetscape. And I know that we, for a while ago, actually looked at some improvements of the Ravenswood Laurel intersection. I couldn't remember exactly what they were, but I guess I wanted to flag that for our commission. I wanted to ask Kevin if we could potentially see that, when this project gets farther along. I'm hoping it doesn't just go to planning, because it does seem to have a lot of potential circulation impacts, and it's such a great opportunity to build transit-oriented development. So I want to make sure that, as we're looking at this, as the city is looking at this, that we get to use, a complete streets lens as well. If anybody wants to watch the meeting, it was really long. It went past midnight last night, but it was a really interesting item.
Yeah, that's a good feedback right there. So we do anticipate potentially bringing that item to the Complete Streets Commission. It does have some circulation elements in it as well, so definitely something that we're anticipating to do for the future.
What was the thing that when Katie referred to a discussion that happened about the corner of Ravenswood and Laurel, I think you said there was a discussion about improvements?
Yeah. So this is an improvement to the intersection itself. It was part of a development agreement for, I believe, the 1300 El Camino Rail project, if you will. But essentially what is being improved at that location is that we'll continue. So right now, Laurel, there's bike lanes on Laurel. However, as you're approaching the intersection at Ravenswood, it drops off due to existing parking and just the overall lane configuration. So the project is, it went through the CSC and ultimately the CC for approval, is to remove some of the parking at the intersection, allowing the bike lane to continue all the way through, and then also making some signal improvements along Ravenswood. Happy to kind of discuss the details offline if you're interested, but overall, there's a bike lane improvement along Laurel, and then a kind of a safety signal / pedestrian crossing improvement that got added to Ravenswood.
Okay, so your response to Katie is that we are going to be involved in looking over the CRI project from a Complete Streets perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. The one thing I wanted to raise with the whole group was simply a question about the start time of the meetings. We are one of the only commissions that starts at 7. I think the Planning Commission as well, but even the City Council starts a bit earlier. And I wanted to make sure that folks on the commission had a chance to think about that for a moment, whether there's any desire on anyone's parts to move the start time a bit earlier than 7. I just want to make sure that this is something that complements people's existing responsibilities as parents and other activities you're engaged in and responsibilities you have. And if anyone in the group thinks that it might be preferable to meet at maybe start at 6:30, half an hour earlier, I think I personally would recommend that, because if the meeting goes long for some reason, you're just not getting that much less sleep with your bedtime. Sometimes our meetings have gone a little long, and I've always thought, are we dropping off in effectiveness in that last half hour as it creeps into the night? So any thoughts from my fellow commissioners on whether it might be useful to start at 6 or 6:30? Any desire to do that, or thoughts that it might be supportive of your personal commitment to the commission?
I have two thoughts, and neither is about me. I don't have a big difference between 6 and 7. I will say that I'm curious about what helps staff, because I know they have really late nights, but then maybe also they have things that keep them. So I want to understand what the balance is for staff. And the other thing I will say is that in general, the evening start times have made it really hard to recruit younger parents. I mean, I spent so much time talking up, applying to the commission to people who've been expressing interest in Complete Streets. And I think I had 5 or 6 different people tell me there's like no way, it's the witching hour in our household. But I think that's a fairly wide range, right? I don't think 6 or 7 or 8 is necessarily going to make a difference. And certainly we wouldn't want to start as late as 8, but I'll just share that I think this time is not always as inclusive of everybody in our community as it could be.
Okay, Brian.
What's the plan to meet in person? Is that going to be, are we going to stay on Zoom, which is fine, but does the start time change if we meet in person?
Brian, sorry, Kevin, what is the history about that? Have we always started at 7, even when we were meeting in person? That's one thing that Kevin and I talked about a couple of weeks ago when I raised this point. Sometimes if we're meeting in person and people are actually going to their offices in person, maybe the time was originally at 7 to give people time to drive from their offices, to the city council, to the, the city council area where we would be meeting. But 7 just feels late to me, even if you were, commuting back and forward. I would love to meet in person as soon as possible, but Kevin, do you have any idea about the time frame for that?
Not yet. So I've been in constant communication with the city clerk about this. There's currently no foreseeable time table for staying, kind of going away from the complete virtual meeting. I would suspect that even if we do move forward with the next step, it will likely maybe be some type of a hybrid format where it's similar to this, current structure of the city council meeting.
Yeah.
So, and to answer Commissioner Baruzzi's question about, how that impacts staff, I think that generally staff is comfortable with 7 or 6:30 or even 6 if there's a strong desire. That's really nothing on our end. Personally, it just means, I start earlier and then I leave earlier. That's it. So that's not much of a change for me. It's part of my duty as a city employee. So thank you for considering me, but do not let that be the decision-making process.
So when the meetings are in person, Kevin, you and the staff will wait in your offices from the time your workday ends, basically, to the meeting beginning.
Right. Yes. So typically we'll just we can always grab a dinner, but then I always usually just stay in the office.
Okay. Is there anyone else besides Commissioners Baruzzi and Altman that have a thought around this or a point of view they'd like to express?
I actually am fine either way, like 6:30 or 7 are both fine. 6 would be less of my preference, but I usually find that between 6:30 and 7, like I'm pretty much ready for the meeting to start. And so I also can see how that last half hour or so when it goes late is not my finest performance.
Me too. Thank you, Commissioner Seabrian. Anyone else? Commissioner King, did you have any thoughts around this? Any preferences? Or Commissioner Coleman?
I'd like to move earlier. That would be helpful.
Okay. Commissioner Coleman, anything?
I know I just started, but usually second week of the month, I do a fire training session with Menlo Park Fire, and that happens at the East Palo Alto site. So that's usually around 6 o'clock. And it goes till about 7:15. So I try to jump out of it before that. So if possible, 6:30 to 7 is best.
Okay. Well, am I allowed to make a motion, Kevin?
No, since this is part of the recording.
I can't make a motion because I proposed it.
Right, so
anyone wanna
we
make-
do need to put it on the regular agenda item in order to
There we go.
move this forward. So
Okay.
yeah, so procedurally speaking, we'll put that to onto the regular agenda for
Right.
next month. And then just to set your expectations, we do have having conversation with the city clerk about this. What will
Great.
have to happen is the city clerk will need to at least solicit other commissions to see if they would like to kind of entertain the idea as well. Probably mainly planning commission, because they also start at 7. Other commissions, they all start at 6:30 or 6 o'clock, which then ultimately will become a request to the city council for approval before it
I
can
see.
officially adopt. So,
Got you.
but happy to know that there is a strong desire or a desire to at least explore the 6:30 timeframe. So we'll
Okay.
do that at the next meeting.
Excellent. All right, without any other reports and announcements, I guess we'll move on to public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the Complete Streets Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment, other than to provide general information. Patrick, do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Cole. I'd just like to remind anyone that might have joined us recently that if you do have a public comment to make, you can use the raise hand feature just like that, or you can press *9 if you're calling in. So it looks like we have one so far. And your username is L Shore. You are now the public speaker.
Thank you. I understood part of the discussion was to be about the changes on Middle Road. And I'd like the commission to consider one of the consequences of the building on the new buildings on El Camino.
Excuse me, sir. I apologize for the interjection here, but if you're speaking about middle, that is an agendized item, so I will save your comment until that item. This is
Fine.
reserved for items that are not on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes.
We'll get to
Just
that.
a
soon.
reminder to everyone that's in attendance, if you would like to speak about middle, there will be an opportunity for you to do so. This is reserved for non-agendized items. So
Thank you,
maybe,
Kevin.
yeah.
Patrick, do we have any other public comment?
It does not look like it at this time.
Okay. All right, move on to regular business. Under regular business, the commission considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require commission approval. Kevin, do I state what E1 is?
Yes, if you can please read E1.
Thank you. Sorry, guys, as you know, I'm new. All right, so first on the agenda, E1, accept the Complete Streets Commission minutes for our last meeting, April 13th of 2022. Any clarification from the commission before I take public comment on the minutes? Okay, Patrick, do we have any public comment on this?
No, we do not.
Okay, do I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner King.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Thank you, Commissioner Seabrian.
Great, thank you. So we have a motion and a second on the table here. For those commissioners that would like to vote yes, if you can please raise your hand and then hold it up. Okay, great, awesome. Unanimous votes. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to E2. E2, agenda item, receive a summary of community engagement effort for Middle Avenue Complete Streets project and provide feedback on the selection process for preferred improvement options for Middle Avenue. Staff Esther Jung, Associate Transportation Engineer, will introduce this item.
Good evening, commissioners. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Yes, thank you.
Great. So thank you, members of commission, for having me tonight. My name is Esther Jung, Associate Transportation Engineer with City of Menlo Park. And I'm here tonight to provide an update to Middle Avenue Complete Streets project. So on the agenda tonight, I will be presenting project background and providing a summary of public engagement effort, including key findings from public meeting and online survey, and soliciting feedback from commission on selection process for preferred improvement options for Middle Avenue. And I will end the presentation with next steps. Middle Avenue Complete Streets project studies various roadway as well as bicycle and pedestrian improvements along the entire length of Middle Avenue between El Camino Real and Olive Street. The city's right-of-way is about 65 feet and the roadway is about approximately 42 feet with 2 vehicle lanes and parallel parking on both sides. It is currently a class 3 bicycle route, which means there is no separation for bicyclists and a removal of parking on one or both sides of the street is required to establish class 2 bicycle lane. The speed along Middle Avenue also varies at this time. Speed limit is 25 miles per hour between University Drive and El Camino Real and 30 miles per hour between Olive and University Drive. The city recently established a 15 miles per hour school zone between Windsor Drive and Kenwood Drive, and that's around New Beginnings Preschool and Little House Activity Center. With a completion of ongoing Neelam Park pedestrian and intersection improvement project, there will be a continuous sidewalk along the north side of the street. In 2017, City Council approved 500 El Camino Real development project, and based on the project's environmental impact report, Stanford University is responsible to design and implement bicycle facility between El Camino Real and University Drive. And this would provide a connection to the future pedestrian and bicycle separated rail crossing near the development. The table here shows the list of events taken place leading up to the community meeting in March of this year.
I'm so sorry, Esther. This is Sally. This is Sally. Can you re-say what you said about the Stanford project on 500 El Camino? I just want to make sure I'm completely understanding what their responsibilities were. Just that little couple sentences.
Yes, so City Council approved Middle Plaza at 500 El Camino Real, and from their project environmental impact report, Stanford University is responsible to provide, to design and also implement bicycle facility between El Camino Real to University Drive.
Okay, thank you.
So the goal of the community meeting on March 3rd was to inform residents about the project and, inform the residents about the project and opportunities to get involved and gather feedback from the community to shape potential bicycle lane and parking options, identify community needs and priorities for traffic calming measures along Middle Avenue, and solicit input on current issues, opportunities, and barriers for walking and bicycling at the intersection at El Camino Real. Prior to the public meeting, City sent out more than 2,000 postcards to businesses and residences around the project area, placed changeable message signs along Middle Avenue, and notified the meeting through social media, project website, and local newspaper. On March 3rd, City staff simultaneously held in-person community meeting at Neelam Park Tennis Court and virtual public meeting via Zoom. Approximately 40 people attended under rainy weather for an outdoor event, and close to 60 people attended online meeting, and city staff received nearly 100 comments and questions from the online meeting alone. And these are all accessible in the staff report. During both public meetings, staff heard concerns about bicycling safety, especially for children, and support for providing buffer bicycle lanes, as well as concerns about removal of street parking with suggestions for partial restrictions. Overall, there was a strong agreement for the bicycle and pedestrian improvements, with some specific suggestions on how to improve certain intersections and locations. Many residents raised concerns about speeding vehicles and lack of traffic calming to slow down these vehicles, with particular interest in adding stop signs along the corridor. Also, the residents had concerns about the number of construction vehicles and larger trucks using Middle Avenue. And finally, there was a good general opposition to back-in angle parking along Neelam Park frontage. From
Sorry,
online,
Esther, what does the last bullet point mean?
so
Before,
staff,
the slide before. Thanks. Thank you.
so staff proposed a backing angle parking at the Neelam Park frontage, and residents had generally opposed the idea of having a backing angle parking.
Okay. And then also concerns about number of larger trucks. Did you say that when residents talked about that, they were mentioning construction trucks?
Yes, the residents have brought up the point that there has been a lot of construction vehicles riding through Middle Avenue and larger trucks as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. From online survey, staff received surveys from over 600 participants, of which about 10% are residents on Middle Avenue, and close to 80% indicated that they live nearby. Overwhelming number of the respondents indicated that they frequently use Middle Avenue, and the majority also responded that they travel on Middle Avenue not only by driving, but also by riding a bicycle and on foot. For bicycle improvement, the majority of respondents from online survey prefer removal of parking on either one or both sides of the street. As shown in the staff report, there was more preference for removing parking on both sides in all user groups. Small number of respondents indicated support for partial restrictions, such as time of day or removing parking near intersections. But in general, there was a broad support for improvements that create dedicated space for bicyclists. There were many comments that were received in relation to Neelam Park frontage. Similar to what we heard from public meetings, many opposed back-in angle parking idea at Neelam Park frontage. About 10% of the comments support removal or reconfiguration of existing parking at Neelam Park frontage to avoid conflicts with bicyclists. And this comes with implementation measures to attract drivers to utilize the rear parking at Neelam Park, as well as an implementation of resident parking only on the neighboring streets near the park. For questions related to traffic calming measures, majority indicated that speed of traffic, visibility of pedestrian crossings, and sidewalk availabilities are all concerns along Middle Avenue. Safety of pedestrian crossing was the most significant concern, and Lyle Park or Arbor Road, San Mateo Drive, University Drive, and Blake Street were frequently mentioned locations for these treatments.
Is there going to be a map? I just want to make sure that everyone knows exactly where those crossings are.
The map was available in the presentation slide.
Okay. And everyone feels comfortable about where those are. I mean, this is so close to where I live that I know these intersections, but I just make sure people know them. Okay.
Right. Okay. So consequently, the survey indicated strong interest for traffic calming features such as sidewalk, flashing beacons, and raised crossings, in addition to a number of other treatment measures shown on this slide. About 10% of the responses indicated that no change is necessary and that some traffic calming features are not good solution for Middle Avenue.
Can we have a pause on this, Kevin? I think your expertise would be great, Esther as well, and other folks like, Jackie and Katie who know more about traffic calming. I'm just curious if this feels typical, like when there were discussions around Santa Cruz Avenue or whatever, are these solutions that people are suggesting or favoring typical of the solutions that residents typically ask for in terms of traffic calming and lowering speed and safety? Or is this a different kind of result than we typically see?
Kevin can chime in at any point, but this is actually some of just very typical treatment measures that comes up often, especially within Bay Area.
Okay, so this is typically what people want and gravitate to as solutions that will address these concerns.
Correct.
Okay. Great. Interested in hearing about the other suggestions too. Was something like speed limit signs, Esther? Were these were these one-offs, or were there a lot of support for any of these?
Yes. So some of the details are included in the staff report attachment, but Chickens Islands, those were one of the popular treatments that people suggested. Speed limit signs, obviously, because people want a slower traffic along Middle Avenue. And additional feedback that was interesting that people brought up was having more traffic enforcement, as well as having bicycle education and additional study on the neighboring streets. And there are a few others that was mentioned by the residents in the staff report.
Thanks, Esther. Yeah, so those are very common. Yeah, you can go ahead and continue.
Okay. And these are the key takeaways on El Camino Real intersection improvements. Safety of pedestrians and bicyclists crossing, especially against turning vehicle, is a major concern for the community. Thereby, majority supported separate or protected paths for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles at the intersection. And they've recommended using treatments such as visible crossing marking, leading pedestrian interval, and providing sufficient pedestrian signal time. And many also expressed concern for traffic delays and safety issues at Safeway and Shell driveways on Middle Avenue. People are generally concerned that traffic flow and collisions will increase at the intersection and these driveways as activities increase at Middle Plaza. Based on these findings, the staff would like to receive feedback from the Commission tonight on selection process for preferred improvement options for Middle Avenue. For bicycle facility improvement and parking removal options, staff requests that the Commission provide a direction whether to bring both parking removal options, one for removal of parking on both sides and another for removal of parking on one side, and whether the treatment should vary across the corridor. Also, to facilitate the final selection, what other metrics and criteria should the staff consider for parking options? For traffic calming measures, staff intends to bring forward a set of recommended traffic calming improvements, including often mentioned raised crosswalk at Blake Street and always stop sign at San Mateo Drive. And based on the findings from the survey, are there any other specific locations or treatments that staff should consider? Additionally, staff seeks feedback from the Commission for consideration of turning movement restriction as Safeway and Shell driveway as design options, for consideration of removing or reconfiguring to pair parking at Neelam Park frontage, and whether the staff should explore changing the striping of westbound Middle Avenue at University Drive and Olive Street to remove the separate right turn lanes.
Oh, okay.
Finally, staff received a petition from residents of Lake Street to close the street at Middle Avenue to through traffic with removable bollards. Staff seek for direction from the commission on whether the staff should incorporate this concept or an alternative approach into a design option. So for next step, based on the feedback staff received tonight, we will incorporate and develop design options and bring back the item with preferred alternatives in summer. If recommended by the commission, staff will present final recommendations to the city council.
Well, we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Esther. Great job.
Thank you.
Well, are there any clarifying questions from the commission before I take public comment? Maybe we want to go back to that. That's that first page, right?
Yes.
I think there were 3 slides. But anyway, any clarifying questions from the commission before we take public comment? Anyone? Okay. Okay. Patrick, do we have any public comment on these items?
Yes, thank you, Chair Cole. It looks like we have a few already. I'd just like to remind again, anyone who might have recently joined us, if you do have a public comment to make, you can press the raise hand feature or *9 if you are calling in. So we can start with Aaron Myers. You are now the public speaker.
Thank you. Hi, I've been a resident of Middle Ave for the last 15 years, and I wanted to express strong opposition to any plan that would remove parking on both sides of the streets, and I hope that the commission will strike this option. I'm curious if there's been a parking study completed. What will happen if parking is removed on both sides of the streets? What will happen to the neighboring streets as well? What will the church do when there's nowhere to park? How will that impact the neighboring streets? What'll happen if people try to throw a birthday party and they don't have anywhere for the kids' friends to park? The parking at the Nealon Park side of the street where the apartments are between University and Fremont. These complexes don't have enough parking for their residents nor for the visitors, and street parking is essential for those of us that live around here. Option 2 seems to be a compromise. It adds dedicated bike lanes on both sides without destroying the parking that residents like myself need. If the goal is bike safety, doesn't option 2 do that? Is there something that the bikes need more space than option 2 provides at the cost of hindering residents? And then I was curious about some of the conclusions that were made on these slides and in the report, saying things like there's slight preference towards option 1. 90% of those surveyed do not live on Middle Avenue. So how can we take those opinions into account when it doesn't impact them? The people that are impacted are those of us that live on Middle Ave. And if you look at our results, then we have a majority that prefer not to remove parking on both sides. So I'd hope that we can have a commitment that if you're going to remove parking on both sides, we do a complete study and you can prove that the wider bike lanes of option 1 is necessary over option 2. Thank you.
Next, it looks like we have a public comment from Bill Kirsch. Mr. Kirsch, you're now the public speaker.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you, commissioners. Thank you for your good work. Middle Avenue is going to be a really important corridor if and when we get the undercrossing built that'll connect the city to the whole Burgess compound. So we can go a long way to our sort of climate action goals if we can make this a really good corridor. So I have sort of a laundry list. I'll go through them. I think we should treat the middle from El Camino to University separately from University to Olive. So right now we've removed all the parking in front of Nealon, if anybody's seen that. And this is a trial that says we don't need that parking there because the parking on the side and behind the park is adequate for folks that are visiting the playground or anywhere else. So to me, we don't need that parking. Let's not put that parking back. I feel like we should hold off on putting asphalt back where it was just removed until we make a decision on what we're going to do. But to me, this is an ongoing live trial of, do we need parking in front of that fronts Nealon Park? And I don't think we need it. It's working just fine because there's plenty of parking on the perimeter behind and on the side of the park. So that being the first thing we need, I believe we need to remove parking on both sides on just the section from El Camino to University, and then just one side, remove it maybe on the south side from University to Olive, as the prior gentleman suggested. And then I would like to see raised crosswalks at Blake. I'd also like to see a raised crosswalk at San Mateo Avenue, and also possibly along Lyle Park at Fremont and Arbor as well. We need to slow traffic down on Middle Avenue. There's a lot of cyclists going to the bike bridge and coming from the bike bridge. When they come from Palo Alto across the bike bridge, they'll generally hit Middle and turn right on Middle, heading towards University, and a lot of them turn left on Fremont. It's a very difficult and dangerous thing to do. So let's do this right. Let's make this a safe corridor. Let's slow down traffic by putting in raised crosswalks. A stop sign would be great. Let's get remove parking on one side from University to Olive. Let's remove it on both sides from University to El Camino. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, it looks like the public speaker is Ken Kirschner. Mr. Kirschner, you are now the public speaker.
Thank you. I'm a resident on College Avenue, which is one block south of Middle Avenue, in the first block next to El Camino. I'd like to call the commission's attention to the difficulty of designing a really safe intersection at Middle and El Camino. There's a dangerous condition that I've notified the city of, where northbound traffic on El Camino often turns left or sometimes does a U-turn to turn south on El Camino and then into the neighborhoods like College or Cambridge Avenue or Partridge. And the traffic on Middle as it approaches El Camino often segregates into a right turn lane where cars are not behaving according to the law and stopping before they do a right on red. So there's often a fast rolling turn, and those cars are surprised when a car on El Camino does a U-turn. I've contacted the city about this. Their traffic engineers kind of disowned the problem because they said that El Camino was State Highway 82 and it was really a Caltrans problem. So we have a jurisdictional coordination issue here that needs to be resolved to address this, especially if there's going to be a bike lane along Middle on the south side of the street. I'd also like to call attention to the regular pedestrian traffic that crosses from the Shell gas station there on the corner, where there's mid-block crossing into the Safeway parking lot. That needs a mid-block pedestrian crosswalk treatment plan. And I also wanted to suggest a solution to minimize the dilemma of removing parking would be to use a parking protected bike lane on the the section of the road where parking needed to be preserved. But I agree with former Commissioner Kirsch's comments almost in whole. I thought they were great comments.
Sorry.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Can you clarify the last statement you just made, the very last sentence? I couldn't quite understand what you were referring
So
to.
parking protected bike lanes
Yeah.
mean the parking is pulled away from the curb and the bike lane is between the
Yes.
parked cars
Yes.
and the side of the street.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, as public speaker, we have username L Shore. You are now the public speaker.
Sorry, I wasn't unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. The El Camino intersection, I think, would be safer if there were no turns on red at all. So whether that's in your jurisdiction or not, I think it's something to be considered. I love the term traffic calming. I hadn't heard that until tonight. And certainly needs to be done on Middle Avenue. What I want to point out to the commission, and maybe it's a future agenda item, is that with the new buildings on El Camino, traffic is likely to increase because a lot of cars are taking Middle to Olive to Oak Drive and skirting around, not taking Sand Hill Road. So Oak Drive is now becoming a pretty hazardous street with people speeding and not stopping at the stop sign of Olive and Oak. So whatever you do on Middle, hopefully will decrease traffic use eventually on Oak. But if not, that's something I hope the commission can take a look at because it's becoming increasingly dangerous. Kids coming home from school are on that street often, and we're going to have a real problem when that happens. Two other small points. One is, I wonder if the commission has considered putting in traffic circles anywhere as a way to slow down vehicles. I'd like to see more stop signs on Middle as one way of calming the traffic, if you will, and making it less desirable as an alternative to Sand Hill Road. And finally, just an observation that the amount of parking that's going on in the park seems to be far greater than the number of people who are using the park. So that's something that I think ought to be looked at to see if who's using it, what it's being used for in terms of parking, and whether ultimately we're going to actually decrease use of the park for recreation because there's not going to be sufficient parking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Eduardo Arias. You are now the public speaker.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. In the case of removing the parking, I will agree with the speakers in the front that talked about El Camino and University. I think there's sufficient parking in there to be removed. There is an intersection in Arbor and Middle Avenue. And that crosswalk, I have seen personally, I have seen people coming from El Camino hit cars in that intersection because they don't stop. So it would be great to see light beacons in there at least light beacons, if not an overpass. In the crosswalk from in Arbor Avenue between across Middle Avenue. Okay.
Children going to the park.
Yeah, children are going into the park, and that is a potential problem that I have seen personally. So I will cede my time to the next speaker, 137.
Thank you.
Yes, and the next speaker is, sorry if I mispronounce your name. It's Bursin Beytekin. You are now the public speaker.
Hi, Burchin. I'm a resident of Partridge Avenue, and I've seen, and my kid and I also take the Middle Avenue for bicycling, and I'm a little concerned that removing only one side of the parking from only one side is still on the table, because usually when one side of there's parking and the bike lane is right next to it, it's in the door zone. So it's just a matter of when, not if, a distracted driver will open the door and hit a bicyclist, pushing them into the traffic. So I mean, removing one side is an improvement, but it only reduces this risk by only half, because when people bike up, especially the kids, when they bike up to Oak Knoll, they will be coming back from Oak Knoll, on their bikes too. So, and right now, because a lot of sections of Middle Avenue doesn't even have sidewalks, right now we're going to be sharing, so those bikes share the bike lane, supposed bike lane, with parked cars, trash cans, and people who need to walk. So it's just too crowded to accommodate every use. And I understand that lack of parking will inconvenience the residents who are really nearby. But I think the needs of the kids who use this route to get to school shouldn't be overridden by the residents' needs to store their cars. I think one of them is a life and death situation. The other one is a matter of convenience. So I think we should weigh these options carefully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Seamless Bay Area. You are the public speaker.
Good evening. This is Adina Levin, and I apologize. I forgot again to double log out, and sometimes it does that. Adina Levin, Menlo Park resident, and really glad to see this project moving forward. I'm one of the people who doesn't live on Middle, but who uses that stretch of roadway, driving and walking and bicycling on a nearly daily basis. And for excessive disclosure, as the discussion of this moves on, I may very well be walking on that stretch of roadway going to Safeway. A few comments. There was a mention in the staff report of something that I think did not get that much support, which was the idea of part-time bike lanes. I would be strongly in favor of full-time bike lanes. People bicycle for a variety of purposes through a variety of times of the day. And so full-time safety is important. In terms of the various different choices of treatments, I would really want to see the opinions of the professional staff about what treatments to use. Everybody's an amateur street engineer, but for example, if I'm going to a physical therapist and I need ankle rehab or something, I will be looking to them to say which treatments, and would similarly want opinions from staff. Support the concern about whatever steps to improve the safety at the El Camino and Middle intersection, particularly as we're going to have more people at the Stanford development and more crosswalks. One thing I hope the city does is talk to Safeway about potentially punching a hole through that decorative wall to enable people to walk through and also go into Safeway. And with regard to working with Caltrans, I would hope that the city does work with Caltrans to improve the safety problems at that intersection. In terms of the concern that at some point in the future, there may not be enough parking, I walk through that area frequently, and the parking around the side and around the back of the park is really plentiful. And so I think that is not a near-term issue, and solutions that really much better utilize that parking around the side and on the back are great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next we have, is it Giles or Gills as the public speaker? You are now able to talk.
Hello, thank you very much for allowing us to have a talk tonight. My name is Gilles Van Rimbeck. I'm a resident of Middle Avenue, and there is 3 topics I'd like to discuss. The first one is the speeding of vehicles on Middle Avenue. My car has been destroyed by a hit and run drunk driver at night, and he literally burned the stop at the intersection of Middle and University. Someone very practical, and I believe that the only way to prevent this to happen again is to have street bumps where the car or the truck or whatever vehicle is going to be physically damaged if they are speeding and burning the stop. Stop signs, lights, not going to work in the middle of the night. It's not going to happen in early morning when people are jogging and crossing the intersection. We need something which can literally slow down the car or they will get damaged. So that's something which is very important, because every other day I can see cars speeding. Middle is one of the longest streets in the city where there is no curb or nothing to block the traffic. So that's a big concern. People are going to get killed very soon if we don't do something that's urgent. The second thing I'd like to talk about is the parking on Middle. Since I'm a resident and I have one of my car actually parked on the street, if we remove the parking, that's going to be extremely difficult for me to go to work. So I believe that removing the parking on one side of the street is good enough, in a sense that if you think about the bike traffic, it's mostly going to be one way in the morning and the other way on the evening. People will go to Oak Knoll or Stanford. All the schools are basically away from El Camino, so people will go from El Camino toward there. And on evening is going to be the opposite direction. So I don't see why we will need 2 bike lanes and remove the parking on both sides. Finally, the third thing is the parking in front of Newton Park. If you look at the parking usage, it's true that most of the time parking is empty at night. Not many people are parking there. When it's raining or bad weather, nobody is going there. But if you look at what's happening when there is actually a beautiful Sunday, the place is crowded. And as you know, when you have kids, you have to carry a lot of things. Babies are requiring a lot of equipment, and if we have to walk a long distance from the parking to the park, people are not just going to go to the park. So it's a beautiful park, really well. We're in improvements are outstanding, but if nobody can use the park because you cannot park, game over. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Randy Ferrando. You are now the public speaker.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I live on Middle Avenue, and I just wanted to make a few comments. First one is, which was mentioned earlier, There isn't sidewalks on both sides of the street on Middle, from both, or from University to Olive. And that concerns me. The data in one of the slides that was part of the presentation clearly shows that there's more pedestrian usage than bicycles. And maybe I'm missing this, but it seems like the majority of the effort is concerned towards bicyclists. And while that's obviously important, pedestrian safety needs to be considered, and it seems like it's taken a back seat to bicycle safety. And so, as was mentioned earlier, people, since there aren't sidewalks on both sides of the street on Middle, people are walking in the street, where cars would be parked, and that area is shared by bicyclists, and that just, as mentioned earlier, crowds that area instead of people being able to be on the sidewalk and bicyclists able to be on the edge of the street. The other comment I wanted to make, people are commenting about the speed, and it was brought up by me and others. There's virtually no traffic enforcement by our police department. And since the March meeting, there's still been zero traffic enforcement. So it seems like it's falling on deaf ears. We do have a police department, and I'm not sure why we don't see any traffic enforcement being done on Middle. So while I don't necessarily agree with losing parking on Middle on both sides, I think people should be able to have repair people that are coming to the house park in front of their house. We have a church, we have a couple of parks, we have a senior center, and so I think the commission needs to consider all of that and what an inconvenience losing parking on both sides of the street on Middle is for the people that live on Middle. And I guess the takeaway would be, if those parking spots go away, then I would imagine the side streets will now become crowded with parking because people are going to have visitors and repair people showing up at their houses. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Misha Silin. You're now the public speaker.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my comment, and thank you, commissioners, for your time. I emailed in a pretty long and detailed comment, so I don't want to repeat myself, but the main thing I want to focus on tonight is just so I live on Partridge Avenue in Allied Arts, and I have 2 little kids. We are frequent users of Middle Avenue, probably every day. And we go to both Nealon Park and Lyle Park on a pretty regular basis. So those crossings are pretty important to me. They feel currently fairly unsafe, but I believe that there needs to be some sort of slowing or traffic calming at those intersections besides just a raised crosswalk. I think a stop sign would be great, or I suggested maybe a flashing red, button activated one if we're concerned about stopping traffic like in the middle of the night. Someone mentioned traffic circles earlier. I think that would be a great possible solution for the crossing at University, Middle and University, because currently that crossing does feel a little scary as a pedestrian because Middle splits into multiple lanes there, and a lot of people seem to be going to work or whatever, just kind of bursting down Middle from El Camino, trying to get to where they're going as quickly as possible. So that they kind of treat that stop sign as a quick little thing to rush through. And like one of the residents on Middle commented earlier, that whose car was hit by a driver that ran the stop sign. I agree with the sentiment that, we need to put a physical barrier in place. So I think a traffic circle would be great to consider. And the last thing I wanted to mention is, I think the suggestion from the residents of Blake is excellent to have sorry, I forgot what it's called, banister or whatever, a blocking object at the end of Blake and Middle. Because again, that Blake doesn't have sidewalks. So if we're coming to Nealon Park from Allied Arts with our kids, we're walking down a street with no sidewalks to get to the park. And meanwhile, cars are turning off Middle, looking for parking or what have you, going pretty fast, not not always paying attention. So we've certainly had some close calls there. So I'm really glad the residents of Blake have come up with a petition and a potential solution. I see that solution a lot in Palo Alto on different streets, and I think it's great. So really support that. Thank you again. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last for now, it seems we have Jessica Gronsky. You are now the public speaker.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, my name is Jessica Gronsky, and I live close by, but not in the Allied Arts area. And I use Nealon Park for my kids essentially, and we bike there, and sometimes we drive. And I wasn't going to raise my hand because I think the earlier commenters summarized my position very well, which is that the commission should definitely strongly consider removing the parking in front of Nealon Park because there's such generous side parking and parking in the back. And I wanted, the reason I decided to raise my hand was two things. One, an earlier commenter said that, you know, you really do need extra parking at Nealon Park for kids. I have kids. I just held a birthday party there, and in the middle of a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and you know, I walked from the back parking, and it was no big deal. As a parent, you know, either I can walk or my kids are younger and I have a stroller, it is fine. And in the middle of a Sunday afternoon, there was plenty of parking. So I just want to say, like, that there is no need for parking directly in front of that playground as a parent. The second thing I wanted to mention, since I haven't heard the commission discuss this, is another solution for mitigating parking concerns for people on Middle Avenue. If we did decide to remove parking on both sides, is to make the parking on the side streets more available to those in the area by restricting the parking using a permitting program for residents. You know, if you have, you know, somebody who's coming to visit you, they should be able to park there if, you know, they're coming to visit a resident. But probably those streets are being used by, you know, other people who, you know, aren't there for residents. And so one way we might be able to address less parking spots on Middle Avenue directly might be to reserve the parking on the side streets for residents alone. So that was the only suggestion I had. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ashley Callahan. You are now the public speaker.
Hi, thank you so much for all of this. I am a local resident. I live on Middle, and I'm a parent of 3 school-age kids who bike on Middle every day, and we walk on the street. We live near Nealon Park and witness the parking and driving issues on a daily issue. I want to echo some of the safety concerns at the following crossings, which are Olive, Arbor, San Mateo, University, and Blake Street. I think each of these should get attention and at minimum a flashing crosswalking sign. I think that that would help pedestrian safety at each of those intersections. I would also like to add that in my hometown, they added a lot of traffic circles into the residential streets, and it's been kind of a disaster. So I would just caution on the under engineering, maybe instead of over engineering. Sometimes those ideas of traffic calming create more chaos and issues. One concern about removing all parking on Middle is if you actually go back to the back of Nealon parking lot, there's a sign that says that it's designated for the Little House in the back. So I'd be curious if you actually took a look at how many parking spots there are in the back, how many are designated for the park versus Little House during the hours that Little House is open. And if we take away parking from Middle Avenue, while I am definitely a proponent of safety for bikers, as my family are all bikers, the consequence will be to be pushing the cars onto Moray and Kenwood, which is like a horseshoe street right by Nealon Park, and also onto Blake Street. And I really would like to request that we protect these residential streets, and especially Blake Street, because this is a major thoroughfare for pedestrians through the Allied Arts neighborhood to get to the park. And if we're encouraging people to come by foot or by bike, and since there are no sidewalks on the way up from College Ave, turning on Blake into the major crosswalk into Nealon Park, I would really like to encourage us to put removable bollards to block off the Middle Ave entrance into Blake Street, because there are a lot of cars that will, one, use that when we have additional traffic to cut through, making that less safe for all the pedestrians trying to get to the park. People turn U-turns and left turns and all sorts of kind of crazy behavior to cut through and avoid the Middle Ave intersection at El Camino. So I'd like you all to take that seriously for the sake of the residential safety. And I'm not a huge proponent of getting rid of all of the parking on Middle Ave because of the hardship that will cause for the residents who actually live there. And if there's a way to keep our kids safe and keep parking in some kind of reasonable way, I would love for that. Whether it's, I counted the cars on Middle Ave between Blake Street and Olive one day during the time that my kids were biking to school, and there were only 10 cars total from Blake to Olive parked on both sides during the time that my kids were biking to school. And so I'd want us to take it that seriously too, if that's really an issue, that parking during those rush hour times is the big thing, because I see the cars come when it's park time, not necessarily when our kids are biking. So thank you so much for all your time and for listening.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dan Asaguri. You are now the public speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to try to keep this short, but I agree with a lot of what has been said. I live on Middle, and I think the issue that we're facing is we're building this big structure on El Camino, which is going to increase traffic significantly on Middle. And the main issue is really about safety. This is a long stretch of road. If you remove the parking, which I think is important for bike safety, it's going to look even wider, and it's going to increase the tendency of people to drive even faster. I can tell you, like some of the other public speakers, that the stop sign on University Drive when people come from El Camino is used as a start. They do stop, and then they use that as a place to start accelerating as fast as they can, direction Olive, as if they were driving in a race, especially around this time in the evening. And I think the only way to really reduce the hazard on the street in the future with increasing traffic is to have some physical slowdowns, like speed bumps, in order to really prevent accidents in the future. So again, I don't want to repeat what other people have said, but I think that is really the key factor in your future decisions. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at this time, it doesn't look like we have any other new public speakers. I guess I'd just like to do kind of a last call. If you do have any more public comments related to item E2, please raise that virtual hand or press *9 if you're calling in. So it looks like we have one new public speaker. That's Sandy Naple. You are now the public speaker.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, just real quick, I wanted to amplify something that a previous speaker said, which is the intersection of Blake Street and Middle is really critical. There's so many ways that pedestrians can get into trouble trying to navigate that crosswalk. And in any of the plans that are executed, they must seriously consider safety of that crosswalk. Cars making left turns from Middle out on, I'm sorry, from Blake out onto Middle are faced with, you know, a dangerous situation. Cars that are turning left onto Blake, cars that are heading westbound on Middle, turning left onto Blake, have you know, pain points between what they're trying to do and people in the crosswalk. So what really I think needs to happen is to make that intersection a lot safer than it is, and that can be accommodated by a flashing pedestrian controlled crosswalk, as well as closing through traffic on from Blake onto Middle. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I'd just like to announce that unfortunately, due to restrictions, we're not taking repeat public commenters at this time regarding this item. So if there are any other new public speakers that would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I think we have completed this section.
Okay, if we've completed the public comment section, I would like to ask commission members for their feedback. Anyone have any feedback to provide? And I do want to thank Katie, Commissioner Bursey, just one sec. I do want to thank the people who came forward from the public and took their time out to share their viewpoint. Really appreciate their comments. Katie, Commissioner Bursey.
Okay, I have a list. Hold on, let me navigate my list. I was taking notes during the public comments. So
I was
try
too.
to remember things. Okay, so quick things to bring up. One is that just by way of background, we've been looking at this for a long time, and I've been thinking about Middle for a long time. At one point, I went back and like literally counted all the. I've also done my own sort of informal parking analysis. I've like counted the number of parking spots and driveways. I went way too deep on this like 2 years ago, but I do generally support. I think the community, it sounds like at large, supports the idea of removing parking from at least one side, which I think is a relief. But I also another bit of research that I did recently was just going back and looking at accident data on the street. And you know, accident data is not like conclusive, right? All you can see is like where are the patterns of accidents that have been reported for which there are police reports, you know, over a decade or so. But I did want to note that a lot of them happen at intersections with stop signs. So I know there's probably more traffic at those intersections. So I don't know what the denominator is, but I would say that stop signs are not necessarily a panacea. Like if a stop sign is warranted, which means there's a certain amount of traffic that comes through there, it's not necessarily going to make those intersections safer or slow things down. And that most of the bike ped interactions that I noticed in the accident reports tended to be due to turning movements. So I think thinking about visibility and speed reduction to me feel like really important goals, because cars that are going too fast are not having good peripheral vision. And are not necessarily able to see where cyclists and pedestrians might be. So then some really quick, also that Middle El Camino intersection is horrible. And we totally should consider working with Caltrans to consider the no right on red, or like a green turn arrow for protected turns or whatever. So I used to ride this street every day with my son on his way to Oak Knoll. And one thing that always kind of bugged me was that we have these sort of wide shouldery bike lane type things, and there's a sidewalk on one side, but people walk on that street. There's an older guy, Lonnie, who walks with, I think, a cane. Sometimes he's quite old. Sometimes he wears a Stanford sweatshirt. But Lonnie's, I just remember one time I actually took a picture of this. Lonnie was walking, there was a car that was parked, so Lonnie had to go around the car, and then there was a cyclist on a cargo bike with her kid on the back who had to go around Lonnie, and then there were drivers also coming, and it was just kind of a mess. So I think that I would love to see the staff, I know that's maybe not in the scope of this, but I really think it should be, come to us with what can we do about a pedestrian facility on both sides of the road? I badly want to see that fixed. I don't think it's fair, actually. I think it's really important. And I actually think that adding bike lanes to both sides of the road and having sidewalks on both sides of the road could have the potential to narrow the field of vision, to make the road look narrower, which I think will actually contribute to slowing down speeds. Because right now, there's not that much parking and it's kind of a wide open like bowling alley. So I would like to see staff talk to us about sidewalks. I also want staff to look at how wide the travel lanes are. We've talked about this in other places, but in general, I think we maybe overbuild when it comes to the width of lanes. And if there's some negotiation that can be done with regard to the fire district or whatever, I don't know that we need like 12-foot lanes or 11-foot lanes on a safe route to school. I like the idea of traffic circles. I feel like I've talked to staff about that before and heard there's not enough space, but certainly if there is, that would be a great idea. So I'd love to see staff look at traffic circles or roundabouts or whatever, even for some of the intersections that currently have stop signs, because again, the one at University is actually kind of a high accident intersection. I would love to see some parking analysis done of the Neon lots. Who is parking in Neon lots? Is that back parking reserved for Little House? What's the parking availability now with the closure? Do we really need that front parking? Because I agree that it's a little, certainly having parking that's not parallel is a headache when we're going to have a lot of people coming on foot and on bike. I don't love the idea, I'm so sorry, Ken, of parking protected bike lanes, because I care a lot about visibility and there are a lot of intersections along this route. And I just don't think that, I want drivers to be able to see bikes coming from a while away and not have them suddenly pop out. Hold on, I'm almost done, sorry. I kind of feel like that was most of it. Oh, I'm not crazy. Okay, this is going to make me an outlier and my friend Misha is going to be annoyed with me, but I'm not sure about closing Blake. So back to my accident data, like there probably have been accidents there. They just aren't showing up in the database, which to me means it's not like the most critical intersection there. I love the idea of raised crosswalk. I love the idea of flashing lights, flags, parades, whatever we can do to get people safely across that intersection. But in general, I like there to be fluidity and flexibility in our traffic system, so that we're not overly dependent on like one node or another, right? So, the most efficient ways to have the most efficient road systems tend to be grid systems. And in far too many neighborhoods in Menlo Park, we don't have the grid systems, which means that certain roads get all the traffic and then certain others, are very quiet, but that's not, we can't go on like that forever. So I would love to see staff's analysis, their professional analysis of whether or not they think that a street closure at Blake is merited and what the pros and cons are and what they think the impact would be to other streets in the neighborhood. I have concerns about what that would do to some of the quieter streets in Allied Arts. I'm sure I'll think of other things, but I'm going to let other people talk. And thank you to all of the, one more thing. Yeah, so thank you to all of the people who came and commented and the people who came and didn't comment. And I also really want to applaud staff's outreach efforts here, because that was so much feedback and input. And I feel like in previous episodes of looking at this particular street and others, we haven't drawn quite as wide and inclusive a circle. But for such an important street, one that connects so many different schools and houses and parks and childcare settings and neighborhoods, I absolutely think that casting a really wide net is critical. So I want to kudos to staff for that.
Agree. Thank you, Commissioner Bruzy. We'll take Commissioner Severin, who is the second one with her hand up.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. Thank you also staff for a great presentation, and I liked all the, there was nice feedback, and also a good number of survey respondents, and to the people who spoke at the meeting. Yeah, thanks to what everybody else said too. So my head just went blank for a minute. So I actually ride my bike on Middle Road every day that school's in session and several days that it's not. So I ride it both ways with school traffic. So I see all those interactions between cars and bikes and what have you. I am trying to like breathe through my frustration with speed on that road because it's starting to like eat into the quality of my day. And so I'm trying to like, these are things I can't control about it, but it is like, it's hard for me to look at the school bike safety route right next to the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit that is just regularly violated. Like, yeah, every day I look at that thing. So I am in favor of traffic calming measures that will slow the cars down. I think that I'm certainly in favor of light up crosswalks because I also see that cars, like there will be pedestrians in the crosswalk, and sometimes like I'll put my arm out when I'm on my bike to like signal to them that they should slow down for the pedestrian just because I don't see them slowing down. And so I hear all the things from the neighbors about how hard it is to cross the streets. So I support some mitigation measures about that. And I would definitely, I want protected bike lanes, I think, for something that is as heavily trafficked by bikes and pedestrians and cars. And that is really only going to grow. Hopefully, what will grow is more bikes and cars as we build housing close to things and we build an infrastructure that makes it safe for pedestrians and bikes. That's what I really meant to say. Like that these new people moving in will be pedestrians and bikers more than drivers, if we make it safe for them. So I'm fully in favor of removing parking for sure on one side of the road. I mean, ideally, I would like both sides of the road. What I think, as I think about Middle, there are some really long stretches of that road without side streets. And so if we do, I can see if we take away parking on both sides of that road, that does create an imposition for a few people along that road that there's quite a distance between where they'd have to park if they couldn't fit in their driveway. So I would be open to allowing one side of the street for parking. But I would also, to Katie's point, really like to see us try to just narrow the lanes so that we can fit that in safely with a kind of like Oak Grove has that clear buffer between where the cars are and where the bike lane starts. So you can kind of see that door ding range, and at least it keeps the bikes a little off the cars. So I'm in favor of everything that will make it safer for bikes and pedestrians and slow the cars down.
Thank you, Commissioner Cibrian. Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just want to touch on the parking and roundabout idea, and I appreciate Katie and Jackie for bringing up those topics. And for everyone who's spoken on it from the public, thank you. So yeah, again, roundabouts, you know, with the 78% reduction in severe crashes, especially when speed is an implication of coming up to a stop sign, there's a lot of responsibility that the driver has to be aware of who goes first. And so the roundabouts will increase that awareness for the driver to be ready for a car entering the roundabout. So I think it's a great idea that it may slow down traffic and cause a little more awareness for the drivers and responsibility. The parking also on Middle Avenue between University and El Camino, I don't really think is as much of a priority now, as the residents have spoken about how there are times where they'll need the parking available to them. Jackie made a great point about having a focused bike and protection for pedestrian lane. I think that's a great topic to continue on later, especially with the Stanford development plan in place. And that is, if we can get the Middle Avenue accessible for pedestrians and bikes as a priority, that may limit the amount of drivers coming out of that development. And they may choose to take a bike or even walk. So that's all the information I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next person I think I had the hand up was Commissioner Allman.
Hi, I want to second the comments made previously about the public outreach. I thought it was really good. I thought the summary was great, and I thought the engagement of the community was great. Does the analysis, does the data collection actually get posted to the website? the briefing that we had, the email we had with all the results in it, all the comments. I think it'd be really good to give that back to the community, both in terms of, letting other people see what other people said, but also just in terms of the responsiveness and feedback to the community as a whole. I think we build trust and communication the more we, share that data. I don't know if that's policy or not, but I suggest that perhaps we post that information that was all sent to us so that everybody else can see what the other comments were. Because I thought they were very rich. I thought there was a lot of data there. I live on College, and for years I've gone College, Blake to Nealon. I definitely, the residents on Blake have said, they're in favor of closing that street. Definitely can see the benefit to that easily. Blake and Middle is just a bad place for kids, bikes, old people. Going to, I go over there routinely. I'm wondering if we can perhaps do some color treatment or something of the bike lane that is from University up Middle, because if I'm correct, there's bike lanes on both sides except from University to El Camino, which is actually the most serious part of the whole street. I'm wondering if you painted the street, the bike lanes, that green or something, that would help visually separate the bikes from the cars. I'm in favor of Olive, Arbor, San Mateo, and Blake getting some type of treatment. I think those intersections have a lot of people going back and forth, a lot of bikes, and perhaps that might also help calm the traffic. Because if you look down Middle, it looks like a straight shot. It's pretty wide. I think people go through the University Middle intersection routinely. I think the stop sign there is just a suggestion. It's not routinely used. And I think a lot of that has to do with line of sight, because it looks like a wide open street. I think that's it. That's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Allman. Before we move on, though, Kevin, would it be appropriate for you or Esther to answer Commissioner Allman's questions about publishing the public comments and the survey data, et cetera?
Yes, the data that we shared with you in the staff report is available online, and they can access the commission meeting agenda to access the data, but we can also post this separately on our project website tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if you could publish, because it's not on the public website right now, right? And I'm just encouraging you to make it really easy for people to see the data. Just make it ruthlessly simple, in one place. I find it hard to scan through the agenda itself, but if you publish the data just very easy to comprehend, very easy to see, I think that goes a long way of telling the community that we're listening to them.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you for your responsiveness. Commissioner King.
Oh, thanks, Commissioner Cole. I do think we had so much good comment. I don't want to repeat really what anybody said, but there was a point that one of the call-in individuals made, which was, what does the survey data look like for the residents on Middle regarding parking specifically? And I think that's something to look at when we're considering eliminating parking on both sides, and why I lean toward only eliminating it on one side. I would like to see what the pool of data for residents on Middle only says regarding the parking question, because I think that this parking is essential to those residents. I remember a few meetings ago, we had a situation like this come up where we had a request, or it might've been an email commentary about an elderly woman whose caretaker came and she needed the street parking and it was being considered to be eliminated. I think there's situations like that, and people who come to the house during the day who might need some street parking. And I think it's important to keep that accessible, especially since those stretches seem to be so long on Middle. I would also mention, I don't think we should be frugal about considering crosswalks with lights. We had one of those installed near my house, and it really made all the difference in terms of making people feel more comfortable, especially at that intersection or crosswalk that we're considering at Blake. I think the flashing lights is essential. And to the last point, the caller who mentioned, we've been discussing this, the speed, and his car was hit. I think that speed bumps would really, along with a narrower road, would really help on that situation. So those are my thoughts.
Great. Okay, did we get everyone? I think we did. I just want to say that, having only been on the commission for a year, and I know some of you as well, that this just feels like such an important time. And the issues that the public raised tonight, and we've all been thinking about, and the staff has looked at so closely regarding Middle, are so, so critical. As someone pointed out, you know, the timing with the Stanford development going online makes it really critical. But I also think you hear in people's voices that they have a lot of concern that some of these issues have been hanging around for a while and haven't been addressed. So it's a really good opportunity to address them. I heard a lot of the same things you did that really jumped out as acute things that we need to address and ask the staff to look into. I'm wondering if the next step is maybe to go back, Esther, to your slides where you requested the commission's direction or recommendations on a variety of things, and maybe take them one by one. Does that sound like a good process to folks on the call, to the commission members? Yes, no? Kevin, thoughts if we bring back Esther's slide where she detailed what guidance recommendations?
Yeah, definitely support that. And it sounds like a lot of commissioners already support that too. So perfect. And Esther's already put up slides. Great.
Okay.
Permission to the chair to ask a quick question?
Of course.
Because we didn't hear much from you actually. And I have one thing very specifically that I wondered if you might talk about.
Sure.
So you're a resident of Santa Cruz Avenue, and you experienced the whole long debate and discussion about sidewalks and bike lanes and parking and right of way. And I wonder if you might speak for a moment about, if it's not too much to ask, about what changed for you all on Santa Cruz. I hate to put you on the spot, but because we were just talking about, Commissioner King was just talking about what, how hard it might be for people to lose parking, and you've lost parking on Santa Cruz Ave. I'm wondering what it was like for you.
Commissioner Bruzzi, I really appreciate the question, because as I was listening to the public comments tonight, I was thinking about it a lot. The first time I got involved in anything related to Menlo Park community issues was around when I moved here to Santa Cruz Avenue, and we didn't have sidewalks and we did have parking. I will tell you 100% that Santa Cruz Avenue is a much better street now that we got rid of parking. I'm not saying that I'm an advocate of getting rid of parking on both sides of Middle, because I don't know the issues closely enough yet. But at the time, like many people, I was like, oh no, the parking, don't take away our parking. But once it went away, the sidewalks were built, and you just saw how much more comfortable it was to use that street for everyone going up and down there every day. The stress level went so way down, just as a resident or a frequent gardener who watches people walk and bike by all the time, watches kids come down after Hillview lets out. You just feel like this is what a street was meant to be, a street where people, you have multiple uses going on at the same time, and they are compatible. So my answer to that question is it really changed me a little, in the sense of realizing that when you live on a street like this, as a resident, I feel like I'm much more invested in the community's use of that street, and that it's good for everyone who is using it so actively, and maybe my convenience around parking takes a little bit of a back seat. Yes, someone was talking about people coming to their home to do work, construction, or maybe a plumber or something like that. Yeah, sure. Sometimes if I know a plumber's coming, I'm taking my car and like running down the road and parking somewhere else just so they have a space in my driveway. There's a little more of like maybe things you have to do like that at times, but it's not an everyday thing. And so I've absolutely lived with it happily, knowing that the street is really much better street. Also, I do spend a lot of time on Middle. I run and I see it all the time. I run down Middle a lot. And I also drive down Middle a lot. And a lot of these issues were familiar to me, and it's a complicated road. Like a lot of people say it's a straightaway, and it makes me nervous, and I've seen that for sure. But what I was hearing a lot was like, and this is where the work gets difficult for us and complicated, but very worthwhile, is that there's sort of different issues along the street as you go. Like maybe there's different issues that pop up between like, University and El Camino than between University and Olive. So I think this is really going to, I encourage everyone to get ready to invest our time and really get ready to invest our passion around safety in Menlo Park in this project, because there's a lot of issues in one long street and we may be looking at it very closely along the way in different segments and trying to decide what works for each segment and then what works as a whole and putting all those pieces together. But it will be very worthwhile work that we'll do. But thank you for asking. I definitely proud to say that that experience on Santa Cruz really made me feel like streets like this are really important to so many people in Menlo Park, so much beyond, your one house. I guess that's how I put it. Hope that was helpful. All right, so Esther, I'm going to quickly grab plug my computer in. Esther, there were 3 slides, I think, where you wanted commission feedback. Maybe we just quickly look at page through those 3 so we see all the issues that you'd like us to address.
Sure. If you can see my screen now, this is the first slide asking for parking removal options at Middle Avenue, and what other metrics and criteria that staff should look for to make the final selection. And another question was regarding traffic calming measures. And the question is, that are there any other specific locations or treatments that staff should consider besides the raised crosswalk at Blake Street and stop sign at San Mateo Drive?
Okay, and yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Okay, the second slide are some of the other additional questions that we had, asking for restricting turning movements as Safeway and Shell driveways, removing or reconfiguring 2 parallel parking at Neelam Park frontage as design options, and exploring removal of separate right turn lanes at University Drive and Olive Street.
Okay.
And finally, about the closure of the Blake Street, whether that's staff should incorporate this idea or approach something else in the future.
Okay. May I make a suggestion? I'm curious, staff and commission, if commission members, if you agree. It feels like when the commissioners, I'm thinking about the public comments and also when the commissioners just gave their own, seems like the first thing people talked about was speed. They just immediately said, it's too fast, it's scaring me. Commissioner Seabrian was like, I see this every day. People are blasting by, these speed limit signs. Can we take that one first? I guess under the category here of traffic calming measures, can we talk about what we would like, our recommendations to staff around that? What else they can look into regarding that? Is that okay?
I think that's fine with staff. I would actually also like to maybe, in the interest of not wanting the commissioner to repeat yourselves, perhaps we can, and also taking this as an opportunity for staff to make sure that we got all your feedbacks collectively as a whole and get all of them. Perhaps we can kind of go down the list, and then I don't know if Esther is comfortable doing that at this moment, but maybe just share kind of what we have heard thus far with regard to the questions. And then at the end, if there's anything missing, then that's where the commissioners can jump in and fill in those blanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Esther, I don't know if you're comfortable doing that. If not, I also been taking down notes, so I can jump in and help you out with that.
Hey, Kev, can we stop after each subset?
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
because
Yeah,
it might
yeah.
be hard to remember. Great, thanks.
Oh, I completely agree. Thank you, Commissioner Seabrand. I mean, or Brucey, I agree. We should stop after each. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I just have one quick question. Is this your action items from all the work that's been done so far, or are these just issues you want feedback from us on? Is there a list of action items you have taken from the survey and the public meetings? Is there a set of action items that you have that are beyond the commission feedback?
I think that's the slide that Kevin was referring to, Esther, that you would pull up on what you've heard so far, for example, around traffic calming, and then see if anything's missing from our perspective. I think right now the position, the role the commission's taking is what should the staff look into to come up with their recommendations.
Right. So this is more of a overarching kind of a high level feedback that we're seeking from the commission. With those questions specifically identified, the next step would be taking your feedback and then actually go to the drawing board and start doing the design portion of the corridor itself. So at this moment in time, we'll accept any feedback that you might have. Like, for example, I heard Arbor University,
right?
All those intersections being intersections that the commission wants staff to look into further. So we'll definitely take those feedbacks in. So going back to the questions, I think that's kind of where general feedbacks, specific feedbacks, any feedback that you might have, we'll take them all.
Okay, I'll start. This is Sally. I'm going to start with traffic calming, and what I heard was that, or at least I'd recommend looking into doing more at the intersections of Arbor, Blake, San Mateo, and I think I also heard University. Those four. Looking into whether there should be, kind of, I'm sorry, what are the, can you go back to, oh, there we go. Need for safe pedestrian crossings. Okay. Blake Street, Arbor. Oh, there we go. Those four. Okay. So I'm in agreement that the staff should evaluate those for additional, what would you say those are called, Kevin? Are they called calming measures or crossing enhancements?
Yeah, we can safely call them crossing enhancements. They sometimes have a dual effect of calming down traffic as well, but let's call them crossing enhancements.
Okay. And I think, my experience is that, and I think Commissioner King referred to this, that the flashing light that you can manually press, I think has been very effective on Santa Cruz, both on San Mateo and Lemon. Any other comments about this? What we'd like the staff to look into here? Are
we talking specifically about crossings right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that, I just want to make sure we're sort of checking all the boxes and discussing each issue.
So we are just suggesting to staff that we want them to look further into these things? Is that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So they can make recommendations about, are these the right four, and what would be the treatments at these crossings?
Okay. I guess if I'm going to offer an opinion, I would say like those, the light up crosswalks, the sort of on-demand lights, definitely at Nealon and Blake. Although at Nealon and Blake, I could almost see I could kind of see a raised crosswalk there because of its position along middle. Like it's early enough in the middle process that it sort of breaks up that stretch from El Camino to University in a way that slows them down directly in front of the park, which makes so I could see advocating for that. Otherwise, like I'm more in favor of a light up beacon at San Mateo Drive as a start. Like I would like to try something that isn't a stop sign before we go straight from nothing to stop sign. So like I would be in favor of putting like a light up beacon and a sign that says yield to yield to the people, like an actual reminder that that's what they're supposed to do, and see if that doesn't. There's a lot of people who cross San Mateo Drive. So if we can alert them to that crossing, then that will serve to slow some cars down, because they'll have to slow down for the people crossing. And that will help. And as many light up crosswalks as we can afford, I support putting them without making them so everywhere that they then don't have meaning anymore. So if we're just talking about traffic calming and these crosswalky things, then yeah, that's, I think, what I would advocate. And sidewalks, like I forgot to add that I, like Katie, also support sidewalks on both sides of the road. Like it's just better that way.
Thank you. I will add that I guess what we're recommending to staff around the pedestrian crossings is to look at these 4 intersections, to look at what would be the appropriate enhancement at each. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Sebrian, and I believe the public comments spoke to this as well, that the ones that's down at Blake and Arbor, especially Blake, to Nealon Park, may need more than a flashing light, and it may mean like a raised crosswalk or something extra there. That's the one that I, as a driver, I feel is the most surprising. When all of a sudden you see a kid crossing and you just barely even knew there was a crosswalk there. That one seems very obscured. Before we move on to the subject of sidewalks, does anyone want to say anything else about those crossings?
Yeah, I guess I would say that if staff were already thinking about a raised crosswalk and the stop sign, then that would be to me an indicator that they thought those things were merited, and I wouldn't want to dumb down their recommendations. So we're not the experts. What I want to see is staff recognize that there's a list of intersections people are concerned about and come forward with the safest, most effective. Y'all know better than we do. Like I can say, I think it should be pink because a lot of people are scared of pink and that'll make them slow down, but Kevin knows. So that would be my recommendation. Like, I don't want to like necessarily design from the dais, but I definitely want to see the safest possible options. And I guess maybe a menu of options, right? Like this is the safest possible thing we could do. Here's a bunch of people that are going to react really negatively to that. We could dial it down a little bit, but just make it safe. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to move on to talking about sidewalks or any?
Yeah. I had a question. Just to be thorough, I think the answer to the question is specific locations or treatments that should be considered are Olive and Arbor, right? Just to answer Kevin's question, to be precise, right? Are there any other specific locations or treatments should consider? Yes, Olive and Arbor.
I think someone also said university.
And university. So I'm a little bit confused as to what we're doing. I mean, I think they're asking us for a refinement of feedback on this. So then I think we should answer that question, right? University, Olive, and Arbor. Right, Kevin?
Yep, definitely. And San Mateo, I believe we heard San Mateo as well. So we'll include all those locations moving forward to the next step.
And then to Katie's comment, I was like, whatever the treatments are, like make some recommendations regarding the treatments. We're not the experts. You guys are the experts, and you've gotten lots of feedback from the community.
Absolutely.
I think Commissioner Allman, I think what I was trying to do, if you look at the slide here and the second paragraph, traffic calming measures, staff intends to bring forward a set of recommended calming improvements, potentially includes raised crossroad and stop sign in San Mateo. And I think I was just trying to flesh out whether do we want to add anything to that?
Yeah.
Right. And then are there any other specific locations or treatments that staff should consider? So if we feel that we've talked about that now and added, I'm just trying to be thorough, we can move on from that. Traffic calming measures. I don't know, sorry if this is on another slide, Esther, but the one other traffic calming measure is that someone mentioned that they didn't think there were like speed limit signs, enough speed limit signs. There we go, other suggestions. Can we look into that? I have noticed a lack of speed limit signs on Middle myself.
Okay.
I would like to see a speed feedback signs the way we have on Ringwood. If that's a thing that staff can include in the list. I didn't see that on there. I like everything else.
I would like if we could get those cool ones that flash red and blue like police cars.
Great.
Jackie's going to try to set them off on her e-bike.
If they make the speed limit 15, that might be a problem.
Okay. We did have one person tonight mention traffic enforcement, but what do you think, Kevin, about that?
Yeah, definitely. And so the transportation group, we have a monthly meeting with our police department. So we'll definitely make sure to bring this up at our next meeting and see how we can best come to a solution.
Okay.
Can I add something to that, Kevin? Like, I mean, I get enforcement is a mechanism to get cars to slow down. Sometimes I do feel like there's some sort of education and like there's a soft and just a presence, right? Like just being on the street, like that will make cars go slower. And being like, they have bicycles now, and it'd be awesome to see them biking school routes in the morning and kind of flagging people who are behaving poorly, both bikes and cars, right? Like there's room for everybody to get better at using these streets. And it would be really great to see cops out, like just riding along and, you know, being part of the biking and pedestrian and driving community in those high use times.
I think that's a great idea.
I would love on this one to see, sorry for just jumping in. I would love to have the police take a look at it and during a peak hour and identify where they feel that they could be the most useful. You know, just in general, I think that's a good approach to our major corridors, because I always want to understand from our police department, you know, where can they add the most value? Like, what do they think will work? But in general, my preference here would be to first tackle the design of the street such that there are fewer enforcement requirements, and then enforce, because it won't be quite so crazy, right? And again, I would love to see, without being really specific about speed bumps versus chicanes or whatever, I'd love to see staff come up with a design that makes the street feel safest to drive at speeds of 20 to 25 miles an hour. I know that sounds outrageous, but like this is a school bike safety route for a middle school, a park, another park, an elementary school. And I think right now people feel like it's a 35 to 40 mile an hour, like safe space. So what would it take to make it feel appropriate to drive at a max? What would it take to naturally generate speeds of 25 miles an hour, which is what we've been able to do in some other parts of the city? That would be my question. And I don't have an answer to it, but I bet staff do.
Okay. Kevin, do you want to guide us then toward the next thing that you'd like us to take a look at in terms of traffic calming? Esther, do you want to show us that slide with what staff's intention was of how they were going to proceed with going back to the slide, the non-crosswalk things?
Yeah, I think we have enough information on the traffic calming at this point. If Esther, if you don't mind going to that slide with the questions. I think we definitely got the specific locations that the commission wants us to explore a little bit further. Definitely got the feedback about, you know, looking for the best alternative or the best option traffic calming wise, and perhaps coming up with one or two alternatives just to be you know, as a possibility for selection in the future. So that's definitely a good feedback.
How about sidewalks, Kevin?
Yeah, so I would say sidewalk, I think somebody alluded to a little bit earlier, is currently out of the scope of this project. It is a much more expensive measure than you know, ultimately putting paint down. But I think there is definitely enough feedback from both the public and the commission for us to maybe take a step back exploring that option a little bit more, and then perhaps at the next meeting, we can come back to you with some information about, the sidewalk, perhaps, identifying, because someone mentioned we do have a continuous continuous sidewalk, but it is only on one side of the street. So perhaps allow us to maybe look back a little bit more, explore that option a little bit more, just to see what kind of resources we're intending to invest for the sidewalks, and then that could be part of the element for the next meeting.
Great, thank you. That'd be excellent.
On the sidewalks point, I'll make one more comment, which, I mean, again, I keep looking at Santa Cruz as this example, but if we're going to ask people to do things like maybe not park because of bike lanes and maybe walk a little bit farther from a parked car if they're visiting a friend, it sure is nicer if they have a sidewalk to walk on. I just think I can't neglect pedestrian safety here when car speeds are that high, are so high, and we have kids kind of wobbling along on bikes. It just doesn't seem like a good idea to keep mixing all those modes. So I'm based on what I know of council members, I would imagine that they're going to be asking about this too. So, you may want to come with some numbers prepared.
I agree. Commissioners, Bruzy, one thing I want to say about that is that someone made the comment that, if you make Middle inviting to walk and bike on, it would potentially reduce traffic, more people be interested in using it as a walking, biking thoroughfare. Certainly the case with Santa Cruz, that sidewalks had the effect of bringing more walkers, absolutely increasing the amount of people walking without a doubt. So I agree with that. And I appreciate, Kevin, even though it's out of scope, you're considering that. How about parking? Go ahead.
I see a hand by Commissioner King.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I wanted to move on to the looking at the bicycle facility and parking, and specifically your question as to what other metrics, criteria to consider for both options before making the final selection. And I thought a consideration for you, Kevin, and staff might be to consider lot size and the density of the homes. And at the portion of Middle closer to Olive, I can see a good case for eliminating parking on the street on both sides, because I would think there's ample driveway capacity and garage capacity for those lots, given the size of those versus the ones at the beginning of Middle, and also considering the distance to the school at that end of the block, where you're going to see much more children on their bicycles. Thought that might help as a metric.
Thank you, Commissioner King. Commissioner Seabrian.
I want to totally agree with that. Thank you, Commissioner King, because as you get towards Olive especially, that becomes kind of a hot mess in the morning, because a ton of people are turning right and most bikes are turning left. And so everybody has to do this with varying degrees of looking on both parts. So I think eliminating parking from both sides of the street down there would make more space for like a protected bike lane to be able to make that left turn and give right turn cars some space to be in. So I do think perhaps different treatments depending on the section of street and what's going on there.
Thank you, Commissioner Seabrian. I want to agree with both of you. I run a lot of Middle, as I mentioned, and I do agree that this different segments of Middle seem to warrant potentially different parking removal strategies. And at that section, in my opinion, between, I guess, maybe you'd say San Mateo and Olive for sure, it feels like both sides removal could work well for all the reasons mentioned. Commissioner King, do you have something else? There's your hand just raised from before. Oh, okay, no problem. Anything else that we would want the staff to consider regarding this topic, bicycle facility and parking?
If I can interfere, just to answer questions from Commissioner King earlier about how many people prefer different parking options for those who live on Middle Avenue. We do have this graph in our staff report showing that those who live on Middle Avenue, that 45% prefer removing both sides, and the rest prefer either one removal of one side or no removal or partial removal of parking.
Thank you so much, Esther.
Actually,
Very helpful. Very helpful.
Thank you, Esther. I was just going to add as well, just look, this is a very interesting slide. Yeah, so 45%, even if you live on Middle. Okay. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was just going to conclude that it sounded like we have all the feedback we need from the bike. So Esther, if you don't mind going back to that slide, just want to make sure that we capture everything. So definitely hearing that we want to move, at least proceed with both options.
Yes.
Of parking remove on one side, parking remove on both sides. And then also I'm definitely hearing that you know, at least at the intersection level, so specifically at Olive at University, we want to look at those intersections more closely with the parking removal, perhaps to the effect of a better crossing experience, better bicycling experience as you go through the intersection. So those are definitely great feedbacks. From a metric standpoint, I'm hearing, we're hearing, you know, want to look at parking occupancy, specifically about the park, Needham Park as well. So making sure that that is further examined. And then of course to Commissioner King's point about, you know, maybe looking at the lot size, the driveway. So those are really good feedback. So I think hopefully that captures everything that I've heard.
Can I add one more thing, Kevin? Which may or may not, like, it's maybe caught up in the density piece, but like, are there sections of roadway with really long distances between a cross street, so that if you couldn't park on either side, like how many spaces are there like that?
That's great feedback. We'll make sure to include that too.
Commissioner Bruzi?
I almost forgot what I was going to say, but then I remembered because I got hung up on the side streets. I feel like bigger gaps slightly than Santa Cruz, but not much. There's always something on one side or the other. But I was thinking about just now about Willow Road and about Oak Grove and about some stuff that we've done in occasions. And Kevin, I don't know what the right of way is like on this street compared to something like Willow Road. And I'm guessing we don't have as much to play with. But I have appreciated in neighborhoods that were thoughtfully designed where they'll have like a parking pocket or two on a block. And we think we built one into the sort of side of the road in front of some condos or townhouses on Oak Grove. Sometimes those can be, actually, I was thinking about it because I believe Commissioner King's neighborhood might have something like that. When I was dropping off cupcakes, I remember there's like one place that's obvious to park, but otherwise the streets don't have like the weird mix of stuff. So I guess another thing to consider potentially, unless you already know it would never work, is, you know, as we're looking at this, is there a way to like have, as we do on Willow Road, there's kind of like alternating like bulb outs for pedestrian safety and little pockets for cars to park, and bike lanes continuously throughout. And if something like that were ever possible, that could be cool. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
We're looking to that. Definitely good feedback.
Kevin, when you were summarizing just now those issues, the one thing I didn't hear you say was looking into speed limit signs or the type of sign that Commissioner Seabrian talked about, like the flashing when you're over, and also the idea of narrow lanes that I think was brought up previously by Commissioner Seabrian and Commissioner Bruzi. Yeah, like how narrow could they be, or if they're too wide?
Right, those I believe we're taking them under the traffic calming measure section.
Okay,
so
good.
The summary I just provided was specifically on the bicycle facility, but definitely.
Oh, I see.
We heard those comments and,
okay.
And we have them down as
Thank you.
Feedback. Yes.
Kevin, should we look at the second slide then? Because I know you mentioned Blake. No,
Yes.
no, Neon parking, Neon parking.
Neon park. So yeah, so if we move on to the next slide, so there are 3 questions here. The first one is considering the turn restrictions at Safeway and Shell driveways. I haven't heard much about that, so some feedback would be definitely appreciated. Definitely sounds like there is a desire for us to at least proceed with exploring reconfiguring Neon Park pending so that parking survey or parking occupancy results. So I think that we have that feedback from the commission on that second question. The third question definitely sounds like there is an interest to explore changing the striping on the westbound direction, so that this would obviously serve 2 purposes. One, it would allow us to put in bulb outs for a safer crossing experience, but also looking at kind of the experience of a bicyclist as well. So I think the second and the third questions, we have pretty good feedback from the commission already, but the first one would definitely welcome some additional thoughts on that.
Commissioner Seabrand.
Okay, so the Safeway and Shell driveway thing, I was just there today, actually, thinking about that intersection.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna seem unfair, but it's not. I think that we should limit Shell. There are 2 ways to exit that Shell gas station onto Middle. I think the one that is closest to the light, gosh, it should be right turn only at the very least. Like you should not be able to go from that into the left turn lane on Middle. Like if you need to do that, you can use the alley exit and try it that way. But it's too close. There's too much going on, and drivers are trying to just like nudge their way out there. So I think that should definitely be limited coming out of the Shell station. The problem, I would absolutely agree that you should limit the turns out of the Safeway parking lot, except that if you do that without making a change to allow U-turns on El Camino, you make that store almost inaccessible from everybody on the other side of El Camino. And that would be a big problem for Safeway and all those of us who try to get to Safeway and then try to get out of Safeway. So like it's already a pain anyway. I already tried to figure out where it fits in my errand so I don't have to try to turn either like left out of it or into it or something. Like it's just hard. And so if you take away left turns out of the Safeway parking lot, like then how are you going to get back to the other side of town? You have to then go all the way University and Menlo, and that's a pain. I did see somebody comment that if you allowed a U-turn on El Camino so that you could exit out the Safeway parking lot onto El Camino going southbound and then U-turn to go northbound. Like that is a viable solution if you have to. But that is why I don't support limiting the turns out of the Safeway parking lot. I could almost see trying to limit, make it only an exit and then have some discussions around changing something so that to make it easier for cars to turn left from Middle onto El Camino and then left into the Safeway parking lot from there. So like it's already inconvenient for some people, so we're just making a change that makes it inconvenient for different people. But like, anyway, so that's my thoughts on those are that like, I don't think you can get rid of the turns out of the Safeway parking lot onto Middle without making it a real burden on anyone on the other side of El Camino.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Abruzzi.
Can I just request maybe that staff, if you aren't already doing this, just analyze the circulation at that shopping center and come up with a recommendation that feels safe? I keep doing this, but like, you know, my gut is saying that like, I think those turns are a problem. I think I also remember that traffic signal at Middle is going to change. I know there's going to be a new left turn. Maybe there's a U-turn too. I don't know. But I'd love to see that kind of analysis sort of incorporated into the El Camino intersection. I think it's just in general, like that is such already a dangerous intersection. Now we're adding another leg and we're adding like a high concentration of a different mode. So I'm sure you guys are already on this, but I just want to emphasize that looking at that holistically and yes, integrating like where we think people are going to be coming and going with the Safeway and the Shell and how to make how to like not penalize people or stores, but still make it safer would be my preference.
Thank you.
And,
oh, go ahead.
And I guess I would also say they're going to be getting a lot more bike traffic. And so the other thing that former Commissioner Dean 11 would want me to mention again is that when we have an undercrossing coming out from Linfield Oaks and Burgess Park that gives people access to Safeway, it's going to really suck once they cross El Camino and have to sort of navigate that crazy thing. So, but that doesn't mean that somebody on their cargo bike who is living half a mile away shouldn't be able to do that without having to drive all the way around. So just, I mean, if you can work with the property owner, you know, to think about how to make that safer and more accessible, that would be really great.
Thank you. I agree. I'm glad the staff brought this up. I agree with both commissioners in the sense that my mind is wide open about how to make this particular Safeway shelving safer. And I mean, as we were talking about it, I kept thinking, should Safeway have an exit and an entrance, you know, two separates type of thing, because that's such a bottleneck. But I do agree with Commissioner Seaver on the basis of my using the Shell station that you should not be able to take a left out of that one that's closest to the intersection. But Kevin and Esther, can I ask, what is the status right now of the staff's relationship of looking and assessing at the middle El Camino intersection?
Yeah, definitely. So as many of you might know that there's recently a new median that went into that particular intersection, and also to Commissioner Bruce's point about potentially having a new turn coming southbound on El Camino, making a left or U, essentially accessing the new 500 plaza, the middle plaza. So to the point about, you know, do we want to explore turning restrictions on middle as a result of that additional access that will be opening up soon? I think that's a great feedback, and we'll take that into consideration. Other than that, you know, the project is part of that middle avenue, the middle plaza project is improving that intersection with additional crossings, and a new crosswalk on the, I guess, the south leg, if you will, of El Camino. So there are some improvements being made there. So, and I think we heard generally a consensus that we do want to at least explore some of the circulation elements along middle as a result of the new possibility at middle and El Camino. So we'll take that into consideration as part of the design.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So I think so if there's no further feedback, I think we are, I think we can move on to the next slide. So this is regarding the request from Blake residents. I think generally I am hearing some support for the closure, but also maybe at least one or two that have some, you know, has some concern about circulation, etc. So, but I think generally we are hearing that there is a desire to at least move forward with the request. So I think this is something that we'll take into consideration as we move forward with the actual design, and then exploring what kind of improvements, you know, obviously the request is a closure, so we'll take that into consideration, but also want to be mindful about some of the other feedbacks that we got. So we'll take a bit more holistic look at it, and then come back with a recommendation for the next meeting.
Great.
So with that, I think if maybe I'm just with my eye towards Esther, I think we have all the feedback necessary from the commission, but happy to hear what you have to say before we close the item.
Is there anything we've missed, commissioners, as you think about the discussion this evening, or I'm looking at my notes about what you all said.
Did we talk about the parking in front of Neon Park, or was that not one of our, or did we cover that so fast that?
So the feedback we got is there's definitely a desire for us to look into that. So and then also there is a consensus about looking at the parking demand and around the park. So we'll definitely look into that as part of the next step as well.
Cool.
Oh. Great.
I had one more thing. Sorry, I think former Commissioner Levin brought this up, and when I looked at the Thames data, I noticed some stuff. Are there safety considerations or access considerations or crossing considerations that should be considered? Considerations that should be considered. I'm getting tired. At closer to the Safeway. So if you're a person on a bike or a pedestrian, like what's your access option at the Safeway if you're coming down Middle Avenue toward El Camino? I did notice a little bit of spotty accident data there. I don't know if there's a rationale for putting anything in there. I believe somebody earlier might have asked in a different meeting, might have asked for a crosswalk there, and maybe we thought it was too close to the intersection, but just, for holistic purposes, like understanding how to make that shopping center sort of more modern and accessible to different modes would be good.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, we definitely heard that. I think there was one feedback about adding a mid-block crosswalk to access to Safeway. We certainly want to be a little bit cognizant about adding more mid-block crosswalks because, as you guys might have noticed, that it does require the drivers to be a bit more aware, and then we also don't want to create kind of a false safety sense of safety if we can help it as well. But I think there is enough sort of feedback that we've gotten that we're definitely looking to that. And since we already got the feedback that we want to look at, and specifically the drivers a little bit more, I think that does afford us the opportunity to at least look at the circulations for the pedestrians with a more in-depth eye, and then coming back with some recommendations there as well.
Oh, and Kevin, can we like pilot like the street closure at Blake or something like that and then do analysis of like what that does to traffic patterns? I feel like we've done that before. Like we piloted different kinds of closures in different places. I think turn restrictions at Alma. There's a closure right off Willow. I don't know if that's a thing, but I think in general, I like the idea of like rapid build, quick iteration, and being able to, not making things permanent until we know.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Kevin, do you need anything else from us around this, or should we move on to the next agenda item?
Yeah, I think we got pretty much all the feedback we were looking for. So I appreciate you guys all engaging, very engaging conversation. So appreciate it.
Very important topic, and thank you so much for your work. And Esther, thank you. And I think that was you that was out in the rain that day. I think I recognized you. Was that you in the photo?
Yes, we were all staff were out there, or at least doing virtually too.
Well, thank you so much. Really, it was a great job. And as Brian said, like so much important data was collected. So really excellent outreach.
Thank you for the feedback tonight.
Thank you. All right, well, let's move on to the agenda item E3, which is the selection of vice chair. Kevin Chen, the senior transportation engineer, is going to introduce this item.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So as you all have noticed that we have a new chair tonight, so thank you very much for taking on the endeavor of being the Complete Streets Commission chair. We do, however, am looking for a nomination for a vice chair. So I know that at our last conversation, we wanted to make sure that new commissioners had an opportunity to maybe learn about this opportunity, and if they want to take it on, it's certainly being a new commission member, that is certainly within the possibility as well. So with your permission, perhaps I can kind of explain as specifically to Commissioner Coleman about kind of the role and responsibilities of the vice chair. So typically with the staff members, there is a monthly agenda meeting that is dedicated to looking at the agenda items for next month. So typically it's a meeting between the staff, the chair, and the vice chair. And then that would be typically a 45-minute to an hour conversation about the agenda. And but then beyond that, certainly that's kind of the expected, I guess, responsibility, if you will, for the vice chair at the moment in time. So hopefully that doesn't scare away some of you. But if with that in mind, I do want to maybe at least open the floor up to see if there's any interest of anyone that wants to be the vice chair. Self-nomination, certainly welcome as well. So.
Maybe we could see a show of hands of anybody who's interested.
Is anyone interested in nominating? And also, I think, Kevin, should I be asking about public comment on this issue?
Yes, definitely. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, perhaps we can open the public comment and then before we go with nomination. So Patrick, if you can just make a quick announcement about public comments.
Looks like I'm seeing one public comment from Adina Levin. You are now the speaker.
Oh, great.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. I just wanted to say something that might have been so 100% understood by people, including new people, that it would go without saying. But the role of the vice chair is also to be the backup chair if the chair is not able to be present to chair a meeting. That's it.
Thank you. Helpful information. Now, Chris, I don't know if you know, but Dina was the chair. She just cycled off the commission, but she was recently the chair.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Adina. All right. So that being said, we know it's an important position for a number of reasons, partly because it's the person who would run the meeting if I were not able to, and also because it's two heads are better than one. So is anyone interested in self-nominating themselves? If not, Kevin, I defer to you how you want to handle this. We could wait till the next meeting. I don't know if that's permissible, but to see how JK is feeling about this, if he wants to self-nominate, but I'm not sure how you want to handle this. Or
I just realized I muted myself.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yes, there I am. So yeah, definitely. If you know, if there's no one that is interested in, I know that we can certainly postpone to the next meeting as well to with Commissioner Jenkins being absent. So, but yeah, maybe we can give it a second or two to see if there's any interest, and if not, we can certainly postpone that to the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll say that I'm willing to step into that role if literally nobody else on the commission has the bandwidth or the interest or the energy. I've done it before. But I do think it's actually a really great opportunity for commissioners to, get to know the staff better and like a different perspective on how the city works. And so it's a really great way to ramp up if you're new. Wink, wink.
Commissioner Brucey, do you want to very much appreciate your offer with all your experience, the fact that you've done it before, that's really significant to the commission for you to offer that. So thank you. Do you want to wait to see about JK's view in the next meeting, or?
Sure.
I'm not quite sure what we should do next.
Did we ask him last time? I feel like we
did, right? Okay.
Yep, we did.
All right. Okay. Well then, Kevin, how should we proceed? I'm afraid I don't know.
Christopher, are you sure you want to do this?
I mean,
say the wink wink kind of gave the hint. I really want to think about it because my time constraints right now. I would love the opportunity, because like you had mentioned, get to know the staff, get to know my fellow commissioners. So give me until the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Let's Kevin, is that do we make a motion to defer, or do we just defer?
Yeah, I think we can just go ahead and defer. I think that's
okay.
Yeah.
All right then. Thank you, everyone. Okay, informational items. Informational items are transmitted to the commission in staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the commission. Informational items are not action items. However, a commission, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. Do we have any informational items?
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. So I just have a few updates I want to share with the commission here. First and foremost, some of you might have an interest in the county's Ringwood and Coleman study. So it's, as I mentioned, I think at the previous meeting, they have initiated an existing condition process. So the next step actually is to start conducting public outreach. So we are aware that that is kind of the next step. So as soon as we have staff have more information about the outreach process, timing, platform, etc., we'll make sure to share that with the commission so that we can help spread the word as well. So definitely want to make sure that we, similar to the Middle Avenue, cast as wide of a net as possible when it comes to public outreach. Certainly a very important corridor. Also wanted to just highlight that we are going to go after, there's a couple grant opportunities that we wanted to pursue. The first is actually the one that we're going to the City Council fairly soon with a potential construction grant for the implementation of that 4th crossing at El Camino and Ravenswood. So as many of you know, we have a crossing project that we're currently working on for along El Camino to complete the last missing leg on Robo, Ravenswood, and Encino. So we are currently anticipating to go after a construction grant for Ravenswood and El Camino, considering that that is probably the most used intersection out of the 3. We're also looking for an opportunity to go after an ATP grant for Willow Row. So this is the Caltrain portion of Willow Row between 101, roughly 101 to Bayfront, and then the grant is to look into potentially enhance the bicycle facility, as well as maybe an opportunity to look at some of the stripings for that stretch of the road. So it's a really good opportunity for us to proceed. Definitely want to stay tuned for that one. And as soon as we have more information, we'll share that with the commission. So with that, I will conclude my updates. Thanks.
Commissioner Brucey.
A quick question on the middle, no, not middle, Willow. Man, I struggle with this. How's it looking for pedestrian improvements at Willow and Newbridge?
Yeah,
I know that's something that one of our council members has been talking about for a long time.
Right. So we currently have an application in Caltrain's hand to improve the intersection of Willow and Newbridge. So specifically, improvements are on the signal portion of it, which will translate to some pedestrian improvements. We're also looking to enhance the crosswalks. Also, there's a bit of a turn restriction that we are trying to put in to avoid some vehicle-to-vehicle collision. So happy to answer any specific questions that the commission might have offline, but there is an application that we currently have already submitted to the Caltrans, which is in their review process.
Okay. I guess we don't have any members of the public requesting to make a comment on this, so we just move on. Okay, move on. Agenda item F1, update on major project status. Kevin, anything there?
Oops, sorry. That was my major
that was
status.
combined.
Yeah, sorry.
I thought so. All right. Committee and subcommittee reports. Any reports from advisory body members since the last commission meeting? I guess I see none under climate action. Is that because Commissioner Levin owned that, Kevin? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It used to be Commissioners Lee and Levin, which they both termed out. So definitely, either we're looking for new candidates that are interested in continuing that subcommittee, or we can go ahead and disband that subcommittee. In the interest of having a new commissioner, and then also kind of knowing that we have about 6 subcommittees, perhaps we can, if any of the commissioners is interested in maybe talking a little bit about the the subcommittee, just so that Commissioner Coleman can maybe understand a little bit more about the subcommittee, and also an opportunity for him to see if he wants to join any one of them for any ongoing activities that are going on for the subcommittees.
Okay. With the climate action one, I'm just wondering, this is obviously something we'd have to talk to JK about, but given that he's on the zero emission, he might want to fold them together.
Yeah, there's certainly that opportunity as well. So right, we can perhaps reserve that for the next meeting as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, do Commissioner Allman and Brucey want to speak about the downtown access one, just to, excuse me, describe the work of it? So Commissioner Coleman can get a sense of what each one is doing as Kevin recommended.
A lot of these, I'll be honest, are a little bit quasi-dormant right now.
Okay.
And they tend to, when we have specific work items that fall into the categories, they tend to have more activity. But this one was really about bringing a complete streets lens to issues downtown, especially after when we were having street closures and things, but also, there's been various talk over the years about adding parking, charging for parking, like different kinds of bike and ped facilities. And so we don't really have currently a specific project or plan. But that's what that was the content matter, the subject matter of this particular subcommittee.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Brucey. Maybe I'm intending to meet with everyone one-on-one on the commission for the next meeting, and maybe we can discuss subcommittees and the fact that they have been dormant, and should they be revved up or should they be folded into others. And so I'll get people's opinions about that. Not take up the time now, obviously it's almost 10 o'clock, but I'd be interested in people's views.
Oh,
yes.
I think there's somebody who's wants to make public comment.
Oh,
on this topic. I could be wrong.
Okay.
I'm seeing a hand.
Yep, my apologies.
I don't know if we were supposed to call for public comment or not.
Yes, let's go ahead and do that.
I do believe Dina had her hand up from last time, but we can find out. Dina, you are the public speaker.
Hi, yeah, my public comment was actually, my hand was raised for the previous item. And my question on that, if the chair is willing to have the question asked of staff, is that there's a Willow and O'Brien, which I think was mentioned. A commissioner mentioned Willow and Newbridge, which is already being worked on. The Willow Village project has a bunch of changes for Willow and Hamilton, and that leaves Willow and Ivy. The question is there anything going on with regard to that other intersection on Willow? And that was my question.
Great. Would the chair like me to provide
yes.
a response? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So yeah, no, absolutely. So as the commenter mentioned, Willow and Hamilton will be part of the overall schematic for Willow Village. Willow and Bryan, I think we had some previous conversation about that. So for Willow and Ivy, there is currently it will be part of the that ATP grant that I mentioned for the entire corridor of Willow. Specifically about Willow and Ivy, our TMP also have identified some signal improvement along the area. So we're constantly looking for opportunities to implement that improvement along with Willow and Bryan. So we are constantly looking at those particular intersections and see what we can do to further enhance them in the vision of the TMP. So definitely is something that we are constantly looking at.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. Multimodal, do you want to make a comment around that one, just to give a sense to Commissioner Coleman about that subcommittee?
Actually, like I will say multimodal was really Adina. And,
okay.
We haven't met, so I don't have anything to report, and I'm not really,
I will mention that the role that Adina played on this commission that's staff are gonna have to pick up the slack, was basically staying on top of regional transit issues and sharing with us about what was going on with things like the seamless Bay Area transit idea, the different kinds of projects with electrification and grade separation. And so Adina is a prolific user of all modes of transportation. And so that's, something she would update us on. And she tended to represent, she's very active in more regional bodies. So the information sharing, I think, went both ways.
And she's also very welcome to continue to do that.
I was just thinking we could invite her to give periodical updates. Yeah.
Okay, the other one, Commissioner Coleman, is Safe Routes to School. The other subcommittees are Safe Routes to School program, Transportation Master Plan implementation, and Zero Emission, which is JK. So if anyone wants to make any comments about ongoing work with Safe Routes to School subcommittee or Transportation Master Plan, welcome to make those now.
So on Safe Routes to School, I need to organize, we all actually, but at least one of us needs to meet with Lydia Lee, who just rotated off because she was the most consistent attendee of the local Safe Routes Task Force meetings. And I think she's the person that the Safe Routes Task Force considers our representative. And so we need to transition that. In general, this too is not so project specific. It's more an interface between this city Safe Routes body that comprised of schools, public safety, public works staff. We have a coordinator, a staff coordinator who runs the whole thing, and Complete Streets. So we're looking at all of the different components of creating a Safe Routes ecosystem: engineering, education, et cetera. Equity.
That's really helpful. That's really helpful. Thank you. I'm thinking that let's think about that, because when I talk to each of you, if there's someone who would like to sort of take Lydia's place as liaison from between the commission and the task force, that would be really helpful. So maybe give that a thought. And if you want to reach out to Lydia and get a sense of what that entails, I'll go ahead, Commissioner Bruzzi, and reach out to Lydia. I think she was going to share a report with us a couple meetings ago. So I'll reach out to her and chat with her about that. Maybe she can give us an update and we can pass that on to the next person on the commission. Okay. Well, that's a bit about the subcommittees. We'll talk about those further when we meet individually, and we'll start to see what people want to work on in relation to those. I think we're ready to adjourn. Great work tonight. This is a really action-packed agenda and certainly like really important issues raised. And it was so good to hear from so many members of the public and how engaged they were. Kevin, do you have anything else, or are we ready to adjourn for this evening?
No, yeah, those. I think we're ready.
Okay, well then I'm going to call the meeting adjourned at 9:44 p.m. on May 11th.
Thank you, Chair Cole.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, staff.
Have a good
Thanks,
night,
everybody.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Christopher.
Thank you, Katie, Jackie. Bye-bye.
All right. See you in a